let's make a start. Sorry, we're a few minutes late. So I'd like to welcome you all, depending on whether it's a good morning or a good afternoon or a good evening to you. I'd like to welcome you all to this ordinary meeting of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, which is being held today both virtually, as you can see from the IT challenges, as well as live from Birdcage Walk. So in accordance with the institution's Royal Charter and bylaws, members of all classes shall be entitled to attend this ordinary meeting. I also declare that pursuant to bylaw 43, this meeting is also quorate. So the business of the institution's ordinary meeting today should only be for the announcement of those candidates who will be considered for the 2023 annual elections to the trustee board and to council. I have to say that the notice convening this meeting was published on the institution's website on the 6th of February this year. So in regard to the election to our trustee board, I will now ask our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Alice Bunn, OBE, to read the list of professionally active corporate members nominated by the Nominations Committee as candidates for election to the following trustee board roles, that being respectively Deputy President, Vice President, Ordinary Member International, and Ordinary Member under 30. So, Alice, I hope the IT works, and I'll pass over to you.
Thank you very much, Phil. So, as per bylaw 61, the list of candidates nominated by the Nominations Committee are, for the Deputy President, Matthew Garside, Raymond Hodgkinson, and Vijay Raman. For the Vice President, Simon Evans, David Noel, and Martin Robinson. For the Ordinary Member, Hadi Mostazadeh, Richard Preece, and Ruth Shilston. For the Ordinary Member International, Graham Britton, Chris Chong, and Darren Sharp. And for the Ordinary Member under 30, Lloyd Phillips and Joshua Thompson-Smith. We received 3 valid nominations from corporate members and further candidates for the trustee board elections as allowed under bylaw 61.2. As a candidate for election as Deputy President, we have Richard Judge. As a candidate for election as Ordinary Member, we have Raymond Hodgkinson and Richard East. As a candidate for election as Ordinary Member International, we have Raymond Hodgkinson. And no additional nominations have been received for the categories of Vice President and Ordinary Member under 30. I'll now hand back to the President.
Thank you, Alice. I'm now required to ask if there are any further nominations to be made under bylaw 61.2. I assume that's not the case. The list of names read out to you will, subject to eligibility, constitute the list of corporate members nominated as candidates for election to the trustee board in May of this year. I will now like to ask Alice again to read the candidates nominated by corporate members for election to council. Alice, over to you.
Thanks, Phil. As candidates for election as ordinary members of council, for fellows we have Lee Parks, Fraser Mackay, Richard Lockett, Paul Johnson, John Butler, Chris Eady, and Fraser Maitland. And for members, we have John Bruce Buchan, Adam Burgess, Gianpaolo Benedetti, Robert Rayner, and Kavita Kumari.
Thank you, Alice. I'm required to ask if there are any additional council nominations that have been received, which have been signed by the candidate and proposed and seconded by corporate members. I assume that's not the case. So the list of names read out to you for council will, subject to eligibility, constitute the list of corporate members nominated as candidates for election to council in May of this year. Voting details for the trustee board and council elections will be issued to corporate and associate members of the institution by the 13th of April of this year. And the results of the elections will be declared at our annual meeting to be held virtually on Thursday, the 25th of May of this year. So I do thank you very much for your attendance. And
Bill,
now,
before you conclude, there is a hand raised, which you may not be able to see.
Sorry, I'm not seeing that. My apologies. Thanks for pointing that out. So if I could ask, Martin, you've had your hand raised. If you want to raise a point.
Yes, President, thank you. I really did it simply because of wanting to make sure that the mechanism by which anybody could communicate and answer your questions was actually working and available, since we were all on mute and camera off. So that's my only reason for doing this, is to make sure that anybody listening who was muted and camera off, that you would get to be able to hear from them if they had anyone to say. So maybe just reiterate that if anybody does have anyone, they can raise their hands and you will notice it.
Martin, a very worthwhile check to make, given the difficulties we had at the beginning of the call. So no, thanks for doing that. I think it is appropriate. So Martin, having raised his hand, is there anybody who wishes to actually make any final comments from their side? No. Okay, I take that as a no. So yes, I think I can now formally close the meeting. So many thanks for your attendance. Again, sorry for the IT issues we had at the beginning, but I think we managed to get through despite those. I do wish you a very good rest of the day, and thanks for participating.